Hello friends, welcome to another Collage with Me video. I brought out my 7" by 9.5" art journal for this session. And the reason for that is I was inspired to make one similar to this mixed media collage, and I had filmed this in a prior Collage with Me video, and I like the style of the mixture of the paint and the paper and this focal point that's centered right here with the paper. So with a larger format, you have more room to add multiple layers of paint and papers. So that's why I decided on this format, this journal. So let's go over the supplies. Let me move the journal out of the way. So my painted papers, I decided on pinks, dark pinks. You can see some burgundies and a really dark burgundy here. And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. It's a good idea to have a color palette in mind when you start a collage. So you're more focused, I should say. And then the paint for the ground, the painted part and the ground, we got a dark blue, kind of a medium blue, turquoise blue, and an off-white. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of these, but I pulled them anyway. And normally I just like using more of a matte acrylic paint, but I didn't have such a dark navy blue, and I didn't want to mix it, to be honest. So that's why I'm pulling out this golden fluid acrylic. And this color is going to be on the ground, so there's going to be layers of other paint and paper on top. So I don't think the journal page will stick, which is a concern when you're not using matte acrylic. So let me put this aside. There's water jar. I brought out my old dish as my palette. Various sizes of paintbrushes, scissors, glue stick, paper towels, and I like using a piece of paper behind the page in the journal I'm working on. So I just pulled out a nice clean large sheet for that. So let's get started with painting the ground first. Okay, the ground layer is dry. It looks very shiny still, and that's because it's the fluid acrylic instead of matte, but it's going to be covered up. So like I said, I'm pretty confident the page won't stick together to the previous page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building the collage with these collage papers, and I'm going to focus mainly off center on the right in this area here. And I'm going to go from top to bottom with the idea that when I come back in with another layer of paint, that some of the edges might get covered up. I'd rather have too much of the collage on here than not enough when I do the painting. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with the darker of the reds, the burgundy and the really dark red. And I'm going to decide if I want to go this deep, if it's even going to show up, because it's so close in value to the ground, or would it be better just to start with this? Let's call it dark red, because I have enough of the other pinks and enough value range here that it would be interesting if I start with the deepest as this paper instead of this one. And I think that's what I'm going to go with. At this stage, I'm just loosely laying out the first layer of collage papers just to see the size I'll need and how many pieces that will fill up this space. And I'm okay that some of this blue is showing through because I have two other layers of paper, colored paper, that I'm going to collage on top. And also it might be nice to leave some of this darker blue showing through for contrast. adding this piece down here because it looks like it was too bare, too much of this blue coming through. And I want to make sure, I should say, that there's enough of this first layer down before I start adding the other two layers. And like I said, I'm okay with this blue showing through because the other layers will be coming in on top of that. I just want to make sure this area right in here has enough of the first layer. And I think it does. So let's go on to the second layer. With the second layer, which is the medium pink, I have to decide, besides the placement, I also have to think about the size of the pieces. Do I want them just slightly smaller than the first layer? Because I know I don't want them the same size, because you want to add some interest and movement to your collage, and by doing that you vary the sizes of your collage pieces. I did that here because there's some larger pieces and some, let's call it medium size. So I think I want to go with more of a medium size collage piece for the second layer, so the medium and maybe slightly smaller. So we're going to start working on that now. At this point, I want to take a look at my second layer and to see if there's any more areas where I need to put this medium pink. And right off the bat, I see right in here needs some of that medium pink. So I'm just going to get a small piece and kind of overlap it from the first layer and the ground. So I think this area looks good. The middle area looks good. This area, I think I'm going to leave it, even though you probably could use another small piece of the medium pink. I think I'm going to leave that and put the lighter pink, start that in this area. So let me bring out the lightest pink and we'll finish that layer. This is now the final layer of the collage section, and this is the lightest pink, and I'm not going to go any larger than this size. I probably won't go too much smaller, but I like that size right there, because as you can lay it upon the other two layers, you see enough of the other two layers so it's not hidden. I think that's just the right size. Point, I want to take a look to see if there's any areas that I want to add any collage papers, and I think it's pretty good at this right now. I like that some of the blue is showing through. I like that there's a variety of sizes of the pink, the medium pink, and then the darker pink or burgundy color. So the next step would be to adding the layers of paint around this collage. So let me get out the paint and we'll do that step next. Here's my paint choices. And I'm going to go with the off-white as the last layer. Referring back to that other piece that I did, it was nice having a very light layer at the end. So I'm definitely going to use this off-white. And now I'm just going to decide if I want to go brighter and greener or stay in the same blue family and just do the darker blue. Or medium blue, I should say. I think I'm going to go with this. So let's talk brushes. This is the brush I use to paint the ground, and it's too wide for this next layer, so I'll put that aside. Then we have the other two options, this 1 inch and this other one that's probably 3/4 of an inch. I want to do a dry brush effect for the second layer. So I'm trying to decide if this is a good brush to use. It may still be too wide, or if I want to go with this narrow 3/4 of an inch. And I have another thought. 1 second. Okay. These are some old brushes of mine. They're probably like 30 years old. And they're good for dry brush. As you can see that they're worn. And there's a lot of space in between. I don't know if you could see that. If you can see the space in between the bristles, these may be good to use as for the second layer. I think I am going to go with these. So let me start painting. The second layer is dry, and I put 2 coats of this medium blue, and you can still see some of the dark blue coming through, which I like. So the next step is going to be to put this off-white, and I'm going to use this brush to paint it on, and again with a dry brush effect. So I'm going to start. I'm going to let this third layer dry, then I'm going to come back to see if I need to deepen it or leave it as is. Okay, the third layer is dry, and I'm revisiting the collage because I've noticed something that's not pleasing to my eye. See where this area meets this area over here? This is narrow, and then it becomes wider here. It's such a quick and hard transition that I just want to soften it up a little bit, and I'll probably lose some of this darker collage, which is fine. Okay, that helps. So I'm going to go back in and do a second layer of the last color, this off-white, and then I'm going to trim it up, and then we'll see what it looks like. The paint is dry. I trimmed off some of the edges of the collage papers. And so at this point, I'm just going to review and talk about what I'm looking at to see if it's a finished mixed media collage. The focal point right in here reads definitely as the focal point. I like that you see the dark, medium, and light collage papers. I like that you see some of the darkest blue peeping through, that you see the darkest blue in areas. The medium blue is showing through, and then the off-white, which is reading almost like a light blue, and I'm fine with that. I think overall, I'm happy with this mixed media collage, the way it turned out. I can't think of anything that I want to add to it, so I'm going to consider this finished. Please let me know if you have any questions. I appreciate you watching this video. Take care. Bye now.